It's the beginning of the holiday season, and with that comes some of the biggest game announcements of the year. Blizzcon has come and gone again, and we wanted to mention some of the game announcements, but the meat of our video will be covering a quote from Activision. If you're not aware, Activision is part of the Blizzard company, and earlier this year, the president of Activision said this about the Spyro the Dragon and the Crash Bandicoot franchises. It's time to think about totally new content within these IPs.
As gamers from the 90s, we could not be more excited for these words. Before we get into our beloved 90s mascots, let's quickly discuss what Blizzard has shown us during this year's BlizzCon event.
This is Obi.
This is Sobi.
And today we will be doing a brief showcase of BlizzCon, and then we will discuss Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot as a series and maybe the new installments that may be coming in the future. If you're new to our channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to keep up with all of our weekly content. As always, for the best audio, we recommend that you use a headset or headphones while watching. Let's start with BlizzCon.
One of the biggest IPs owned by Blizzard is Diablo. Making its debut back on December 31st, 1996, Diablo was an asymmetric RPG that focused on the dark depths of the underworld. You spend most of your time delving into dungeons and gathering loot. Later, Diablo 2 enhanced everything about the first game and expanded on its loot system. Diablo 3 was a huge success with its couch co-op and online gameplay. The combat system was overhauled, and the game offered an insane amount of replayability. Diablo 4 has been announced, and we were given 2 different trailers. The first trailer focused on the story arc, giving us some basic information on what to expect in the upcoming story. The second trailer showcased the gameplay and a look into 3 of the new characters we can choose from in this installment. Another big hitter for Blizzard is Overwatch. Overwatch offers a lot when it comes to online PvP. This title has a huge following, and now Overwatch is part of the esports community. At BlizzCon, we were able to get our first look at Overwatch 2. This installment takes place 30 years after the events of the first title, after our band of heroes known as Overwatch has been disbanded for unknown reasons. But our merry band of heroes is back in action. Overwatch 2 will offer more than just competitive gameplay this time, as the developers are promising a new PvE gameplay story mode. As far as PvP goes, there will be new game modes that will be going to the esports as well. For those that played the first game that are worried their cosmetics are going to be lost, well, fret not, as everything you have earned in the first title will carry over to the second.
World of Warcraft is getting another expansion, and it looks rather interesting. After the fall of the Lich King, the world is in peril. Without someone to jail the souls, the Blight of the Scourge is now out of control. World of Warcraft Shadow Lands will be taking you to new grounds for players, as you will be going to the afterlife. New areas and factions are to be expected, and with that you can expect to see new dungeons. Now for some quick announcements. Starcraft 2 is getting a major update, Deathwing is coming to Heroes of the Storm, Warcraft 3 Reforged is now in beta, and the release date should be announced soon, and Hearthstone is getting an expansion as well. Now that those are out of the way, let's get back to our initial quote. It's time to think about totally new content within these IPs. By now we are sure that most of you are familiar with these 2 titles, Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot. If you're not, well, let's take a look into their histories, and for those that already know, be ready to be kicked in the face with some nostalgia. After the release of the PlayStation, Sony Entertainment had some large shoes to fill while competing with one of the biggest game companies, Nintendo.
It's me, Mario!
People were already familiar with Nintendo's games, and titles like Mario and Donkey Kong were a household name.
Here we go!
Sony knew they needed to draw attention away from these heavy hitters.
Hey, plumber boy, mustache man, your worst nightmare has arrived.
Crash Bandicoot was a staple for the original PlayStation, releasing on September 9th, 1996, under the development of Naughty Dog. This title laid the groundwork for Insomniac. While Spyro focused on 3D exploration, Crash Bandicoot kept to more of an older-style 2D platformer with 3D textures. In this title, you play as Crash, who is trying to stop Spryo and Cortex's plans for world domination, while also trying to save Crash's girlfriend, Tawna. Similar to Spyro series, you would be given things to collect along your way. Naughty Dog would go on to develop 2 more titles under the Crash license. There was Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back, and Crash Bandicoot 3, Warped. These titles were then followed by the ever-popular Crash Team Racing.
Store's closed. Not for me, pal. You might say I'm Spyro's hot co-star. I love that little dragon.
Sony would go on to hire a company called Insomniac, and Spyro the Dragon was born. Spyro the Dragon was released on September 9th, 1998. The game was about a little purple dragon and his even smaller sidekick Sparks. Spyro was tasked with saving the other dragons that had been encased in stone by Nasty Nort. Along your journey, you would collect gems and free the dragons. The game starts you out in a hub world that allows you to unlock other worlds that you can then travel after rescuing a certain number of dragons. Spyro would become the second of Sony's mascots. Later, 2 more installments came from Insomniac, Spyro Ripto's Rage and Spyro Year of the Dragon. While these games stood very close to their roots, there was some small quality of life changes that would make the game even more fun to play.
While both Spyro and Crash would go on to market very well, Insomniac and Naughty Dog would later sell the rights to these titles. Insomniac moved on and started working on the Ratchet & Clank franchise, and Naughty Dog moved their focus to Jak and Daxter. After Universal took over both names, the quality of the games began to suffer, and so did sales. Crash and Spyro then changed hands going through third-party games, and before long, both 90s mascots were unrecognizable. Finally, in June of 2017, we were able to get our hands on Crash Insane Trilogy, and same for Spyro a little over a year later in November of 2018, with Spyro Reignited. Both games brought back what was great about the beginning of the series, and both remasters were on point. They were able to bring us back to our childhood. Looking back at the original titles, the graphics were terrible, but when we remembered it in our minds, we saw something else. These remasters were what we remembered from our young minds. Moving forward, we can say that without a doubt, we would love to see the series continue, but with the visions of the original developers brought to the table. Spyro needs to remain lighthearted and basic platforming and a sense of exploration. As far as Crash, it needs to keep to the old tradition of side-scrolling or moving at 90-degree angles.
If you were to ask me what I would like to see in a Spyro game, to be honest, I would love to revisit some of the older worlds with new areas to explore. I did have a thought that maybe instead of collecting orbs, eggs, or breaking the dragons free from stone, what if we were bringing back memories from the past games? Like the inhabitants had all lost their memories and you must return them. Of course, in doing so, they would give you something that you need in order to move on to the next area. That being said, new worlds are welcome as long as they retain the original feeling and concept of Spyro.
Crash needs to remain comical but keep to its roots as well. I would like to see the overworld map style return for the first title, and Cortex back again trying to take over the world. We think the pacing needs to be picked up in a new installment though. Technology has changed and playing the game's remaster made us realize how slow the Bandicoot really was. Themed worlds are a must to preserve the original presence of these past titles.
Well guys, this wraps up this episode. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave us a like. It helps us reach a broader audience and we really appreciate it. If you have not done it already, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be the first to see our weekly content. We upload every Friday and we hope to see you there. Now we want to know, are you excited about any of the new content that was showcased at this year's Blizzcon? If there is a new Spyro or Crash game on its way, which are you most excited for? Let us know in the comments.
And you can follow us on Twitter by clicking the link in the description down below.
Until next time, this is Obi.
This is Sobi.
Signing out.
See you guys next time.